once again, so nice to meet you. Um, so I guess my first question that I have for you is, like, what is the flat Earth theory, and who introduced you to flat Earth?
Well, what is the flat Earth theory? The flat Earth theory, it's not a theory, it's observations and scientific viewing of the Earth. The question that you really should be asking is why do you believe the Earth is a globe when curvature's never been measured? We've only have, a story is boats going over the horizon, and we can easily explain that on a flat Earth. Um, it flat people have an idea like when they think flat earth, you google flat earth and you see a disk floating in space. Well, that's two false models. That's a false heliocentric model and a false flat earth model. That's not what flat earth is at all. And what got me into it, I went in kicking and screaming like everybody else. I didn't want anything to do with it. I thought it was the dumbest crap ever. And then I was told by a researcher that I respect very much, like, Dave, you got to look into this. And I looked into it with a closed mind. I'm just going to debunk flat Earth, prove the globe, and be done with this. And that was 2014. Here I am today speaking with you, talking about, what is flat Earth? So flat Earth, if the Earth is a ball, then there needs to be curvature all the way around. So the farther you go, the more curvature there is. And that curvature, according to globe math, can be calculated easily. It's the formula is 8 inches per mile squared, which means at 1 mile there's 8 inches of drop. But if you keep continuing out straight, tangent to the bottom of your feet, at 2 miles it's going to be more. It's going to be 32 inches, and at 3 miles it's going to be 6 feet. At 100 miles it's 66 feet. No, at 10
Okay.
miles, it's 66 feet. At 100 miles, it's 6,600 feet, over a mile of curvature. And the thing is, we can see things far beyond the limits of a globe. How's that for a start?
Yeah, that okay. Yeah. Um, well, thank you for correcting me with like the theory part. I'm not sure on like how I was like the proper thing because some people are like, well, gravity's just a theory too. So I wasn't sure if that was like the proper term. So like thank you for correcting me.
Yeah, no, that's okay. It's okay. It's we you would think it's a theory because, of course the Earth is a globe. You've been told it's a globe since before you could speak. All the children's shows, they have astronauts in outer space, and Disney has astronauts on there, and it's all programming for your mind. And the question that you will eventually ask will be, well, why would they lie? What difference does it make? I still have to go to work on Monday. And that's the greatest question of all. But let's look at some of the evidence before we dive into why this epic lie, because it is the most important lie. It's the lie that keeps us as slaves in this heliocentric prison, right? The heliocentric deception is a prison for your mind, and they don't want you to understand that you're at the center of creation.
So it's about like a control thing.
Well, totally about control. I mean, all, governments, govern is to control, meant is the mind. Words have a lot of meaning. So the government is here to control your mind. And they've literally hijacked, the education system and turned it into the indoctrination system. If you want to become a teacher or a professor, all you have to do is memorize and regurgitate. And then you will become a teacher or a professor. So now, I could write the book of BS, give it to you. You could study it. And then I test you on it. You get 100. I'll give you a certificate. You are now qualified in BS. And when you talk BS with your friends, they're not allowed to question you because they don't have a degree. You do, right? That's what our education system is, right? If you want to get straight A's, don't question what's in the books. Regurgitate it perfectly, right?
Yeah, like
But science,
repetition.
yeah, you just memorize and regurgitation. That doesn't make it true because it's in a textbook written by the Rockefellers, who clearly say they don't want a nation of thinkers; they want a nation of workers, right? So
Yeah.
so what are they going to do? Are they going to educate you so you can challenge their authority over you? That's crazy. Here's the thing that all flat earthers have in common: we look back and we go, how the hell did we ever believe in the globe? We also ridiculed flat earthers when we first heard about it. We ridiculed them. We made fun of them. We pointed at them. We laughed. We made insults. We made ad homs, and we threw out, what about seasons? What about sunsets? What about, day and night? What about, boats over the horizon? And then when it was explained to us and we looked at it and we did the physical tests ourselves, we're like, wow, all of that stuff does make sense. Seasons prove flat earth. Absolutely. Everything. I mean, everything proves flat Earth because we're not, let me ask you a question. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. And when I was asked these questions, I was, I got them all wrong. So if you get one right, you did better than me. Okay. You ready?
Okay.
What's the circumference of the Earth according to the globe Earth?
That's actually what that was actually my next question that I have written down for you.
Yeah,
Is
it's 24,901 miles around, right? That's what they say. What's the radius? Well, if you don't know the circumference, you don't know the radius. How far is it from the sun? Do you know that?
I do not know how
The
far away it
93
is.
million miles, they say, right? But how wide is the sun? 186,000 miles wide, right? But it's 93 million miles away, so it looks small. And the moon is 1/400th of that size, but it's 400 times closer, where the sun's 400 times farther than the moon. So they look like they're the same size, or maybe they're just the same size, right? So
Okay, so is the moon so the moon and the sun are the same size?
look at that sky. Are they the same size?
They do appear to be the same size.
When
Yeah,
there's
that's
a,
not
when
even a
there,
concept that I thought about, like, oh,
yeah,
genuinely.
they're the same size, but they tell you one's 400 times bigger and 400 times farther. Then they tell you that a solar eclipse is when the moon lines up perfectly with the sun and blocks it out. If the sun was 400 times farther and the moon, 400 times bigger, the chances of it lining up for us to see are infinitesimally small, right? That's just once. But there's eclipses every year, and then every 18 years they come in patterns. They come, in just in like a pattern, and a pattern means it repeats, and that pattern repeats every 18 point something years, where all of the eclipses repeat again and again and again, like a fine gears on a clock.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's impossible in a gravitationally held together heliocentric world. We're spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. So that means when you watch the sunset, the sun's not just moving away like every sense in your body tells you. You're falling over backwards faster than the speed of sound. And it just looks like the sun's getting farther away. That sounds crazy because it is crazy, right? You're orbiting the sun at 66,600 miles an hour average speed. Funny number, 666, right? 66,600 miles per hour. You can't fathom that speed. Okay. And then we're chasing the sun at over 500,000 miles an hour as we corkscrew through the galaxy, never to return to where we were before. All of these motions are going on. They say that 80% of the stars in the helios in our galaxy are what's the word I'm looking for? They're bipolar, which means bipolar. Is that maybe that's not the word? They're orbiting around each other. Okay, they're in a
Okay.
binary. They're in binary orbits. So two of them will orbit. So all of the stars are moving in their own directions. We're moving a 500,000,000, 4.4 billion miles a year, never to return to where we were before. But when we look up at the stars at night, they never change. They never change. Take a picture of the stars tonight at whatever, at midnight. Go out and take a picture at 10 p.m. Doesn't matter. Take a picture and then remember exactly where your camera was and exactly what time you did it. Put a note in your calendar to do it again next year and in 10 years. And every single star will be in the exact same place. How's that possible?
And
Unless
I get
they're,
what you're saying because
yeah.
like Orion's Belt and all these named stars are have been around for forever,
And
you
they've
know?
never changed. We're moving 4.4 billion miles
And
a
before we get
year.
like too far back, like
Yeah.
forward, when you were talking about like education and stuff, like I just want to say first off, I'm gonna be as genuine as I can
Yeah.
throughout this
Yeah.
whole
No
thing,
problem. Ask
but
anything you want.
it's not like an ask. It's like I completely agree that at least for the American education system, that's what I experienced is like completely set up to make workers or like worker bees, or it's set up.
100%.
It's based upon like the um assembly line and things of that nature, and it's meant so like I understood what you were meaning by that when you had said that
Yeah.
prior. And so I guess like where I'm going with the because we were talking about the stars, we're talking about um like how it's always seemingly to be in the same place no matter what. What about like okay, so with the other planets, so like I know recently I guess I don't really know, but it was announced recently that like for the first time in a very long time, like almost all the planets were like aligned in a straight line this past January. And I just found that so odd. That's like, how could we see all of the planets with our naked eye, everything, like I think it's like the first like six, like without a telescope, without
Yeah.
any of these extra things, all in a line. But like, why aren't we in the line? I
Yeah,
guess.
well, so you're asking great questions. You're actually thinking, which is great. It's very rare these days. And if you think about the model of our solar system, they show all the planets are orbiting around the sun, but they're all on the same plane. You know what I mean? They're all on the same flat plane. They're all circling around if we were on a record album, we're all on the album somewhere. All the planets they're not like in three dimensions. They're all on the same plane. You with me? You understand that?
Yeah.
So that's weird. That's weird, right? And then they want you to believe that there's other planets, plane with a T added to it, planets, right? I don't believe in other planets. Now, you can look up in the sky tonight and you'll see Mars and Jupiter and Venus. Well, one, we shouldn't be able to see Venus because Venus is in between us and the sun. So how the heck are we seeing in the sky? But let's look at Jupiter because Jupiter is very bright. You could even say Jupiter is almost as bright as the sun. It's just like a big star, so it doesn't blind you. You can look at it, but it is fire in the sky. When I say fire, I mean it is bright. It's bright. It's bright as can be. You have to believe that Jupiter, that's made of dusty, dirty gases, is reflecting sun. You ever see gas reflect sun? Gas absorbs light, right? But it's reflecting sunlight and it's traveling 400 million miles away back to your eye here on Earth so you can see it as bright as you see it. There's a thing called the inverse square law of light. Sounds complicated, but it's not. Every time you double a distance to a light, it becomes half or a quarter is bright. Some people say half. I'll go that. I think it's a quarter, but let's just say half. Half is bright. Double it again, half that. Double it again, half that. Right. So so they say, you've seen the model of our sun. If our sun was a yoga ball, right? You know what a yoga ball looks like, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The Earth would be the size of a small marble or a BB, something like that, right?
I have seen that
Yeah, yeah.
description
So
before.
if our sun was a mile over your head, just for demonstration purposes, it would fill your entire sky. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. So then we move it 93 million miles away. Now it's the size of a nickel held at arm's length because it reduced in size because it's going into the distance, right? Right?
Yeah, because it would
Because it's farther away. That's why if the sun was right next to us, we'd see how big it was, but it's so far away, it looks like the size of a coin held at arm's length. Yes?
yeah, or like the size of like someone's thumb or
Yeah, yeah.
whatever
It's the size of your
measurement that
thumbnail.
you
Yeah,
want.
it's whatever it is. It's small.
Yeah.
So our sun is 93 million miles away. Let's just round up, say 100 for even numbers, right? So if we doubled the distance to we moved the sun twice as far away, how much smaller would it get? It would be
It
about a
should, in theory, get much smaller.
much smaller, about a quarter of the size. So now it's the size of like a pencil eraser, right? So it's twice as far, 200,000, 200 million miles. Make it double that, 400 million miles. It's now going to be like the size of a star. It's going to be pretty damn small, right? So now imagine you're on Jupiter. You're 400 million miles away from the sun. And the sun that you see, it looks like a star because it's so far away. Even NASA has put out, what the sun looks like from other planets. It's literally just like a small star, right? So you have to believe that small, distant, weaker, less bright sun is lighting up the non-reflective gases on Jupiter. Those non-reflective gases are reflecting the sun that's going to travel 300 million miles minimum to your eye here on Earth, and you're going to see it as bright as we see it. Do you see how this isn't making any sense?
Well, I thought it was because it's so bright just because of like the intensity of the fire of the sun, if that makes
There's
sense.
no fire on Jupiter. None of the planets are on fire. They're reflecting sunlight. You ever go out in the
Oh, so it's
middle?
like the moon. They're reflecting the light off the sun like the moon.
Well, I was just going to go to the moon because the moon, do you believe we went to the moon? You
I
haven't really
don't.
thought of
I
you, okay. All right,
don't.
but you haven't really looked into it that much, so you can't say for sure, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't around, and
Yeah.
it's just the shadiness of us losing. Like I knew a few
We
years
lost
ago,
all the data,
NASA,
right?
yeah,
Very
we
good.
lost it, and they said they no longer have the
All right.
capabilities,
All right.
and
So
it's just for those reasons.
yeah, yeah. So they tell us the moon is a dusty, dirty ball, a piece of the earth that got hit and taken off somehow. Nonsense. But the sun is reflecting off of that. And then you could read by it. Like if you're in the middle of nowhere and there's a full moon in the sky, you could read. It's casting your shadow on the ground. How does a dusty, dirty rock a quarter of a million miles away cast so much light that you could read by it and it casts your shadow on the ground? Right?
Okay.
If you're standing next to like a cement wall or a big one of those big cement balls, like out in front of a building or in a parking lot, is that reflect? You're right next to it, so it should be brighter than you see the moon. But when you look at the moon is a light. The moon is its own light, and the moon's light is very different than the sun's light. The moon's light, when you magnify it, it gets colder. Do you know that? You could take moonlight with a magnifying glass, just like when you burn ants with a magnifying glass, you can make things colder with moonlight. Is that
I did
weird?
not know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's
I do have
colder in the
a
moonlight.
question
Go
from
ahead.
my chat.
Go.
Um, a good a friend of mine. His name is Maui Jam. He's asking, have you tried the Stanley experiment yet, or protocol, or paradox, or whatever it is called?
I don't know what the Stanley experiment is. What is that?
Oh, Maui, if you're still here, I know it was like a little while ago before I was able to read it. What is the Stanley experiment or paradox? Like, what does that entail?
While we're waiting for that, um,
Yeah.
here's the thing. I'm pointing to some doors tonight. Most people, and I did it too, so I'm not criticizing you. Are saying this is ridiculous, this is stupid, and you're going to regurgitate, the things that I listed before: sunset, seasons, boats over the horizon, Eratosthenes and his sticks and shadows, right? But then when you actually find out the truth about these things, you're going to really start scratching your head. So then you're going to start Googling, like, "Hey, is the Earth flat?" And Google's going to we're going to reply, "No, it's not." Hey, give me the top 10, give me a video, top 10 reasons the earth is flat. And they're going to give you top 10 reasons the earth is a globe. Why isn't Google listening? Why are they giving you the opposite of what you're asking for? This is the most highly censored topic because this is the topic that threatens the
The
power,
integrity.
the power authority, the authority of the governments, right? We'll get into that in a moment. But if you want to find the truth, I've organized it, made it super easy for you. It's on my website,
Yeah, on the website.
flatearthdave.com. You're looking at my app on here. It's a $3 app. If you want to get the app, it's amazing, mind blowing. It does tons and tons of stuff, and it'll literally educate you. But you can get free stuff on my website. There's you'll see a big picture of me, and it says crash course. And here's my Bitcoin challenge. For those of you that know what Bitcoin is, Bitcoin's around $100,000. I offer 3 Bitcoins for one proof of the globe. But before you waste my time, because the earth is flat, you have to either watch the daily video each day on the app for 2 weeks, or you have to watch the first 5 videos in the crash course that's on my website. Either one is okay. And then when you do it, just make sure on the app, you can check the FAQ page to see if your so-called proof hasn't been completely answered away. And I just have to warn you, if you try to win the Bitcoins, you are going to end up with no Bitcoins and a flat earther.
Well, thank you for that. I was unaware of your challenge, and so
Yeah,
that was
there you
super
go.
interesting.
Okay.
I do have I literally have like a page and a half of questions because I was so interested, and I've been like stewing on this like since I talked to you the first time.
Yeah, no problem.
Um, so when was like when was it discovered that that the Earth was flat? Like when was it like who was the first person to
Interesting
realize?
question. Interesting question. So all of our history is a lie. By the way, my website, if I mentioned it, is flatearthdave.com. All my socials are there. Everything's there. The app is there. The crash course is there, flatearthdave.com. So we're told that, the Greeks figured it out 2,000 years ago, Eratosthenes with his sticks and shadows. That story is complete and total bunk, right? All of the stories of all, Copernicus and Galileo and stuff, I'm not even sure those people ever existed. They're just stories in books. And when you say how long has the flat Earth been around, it's been around forever. It's the globe that's new. I interviewed a woman named Ruth in 2020. I was actually interviewing her about the world's fairs in the old world, which is another amazing topic. And I said to her, and she was 102 years old, and I said, Ruth, what did they teach you in elementary school about the Earth? That's all I said. And she goes, "So they taught me the Earth was flat, but then years later they changed it." And when I told her that the Earth was flat and explained it how it was, it literally brought tears to her eyes. It's an amazing video, and it's waking up a lot of people. But so when you say when did it happen, they were teaching flat Earth in American schools into the mid 1900s. Right? They're
Okay.
still teaching flat Earth in other countries in some areas. In Costa Rica, they teach flat Earth. In I forget some other countries, they still teach flat Earth. Many countries know the Earth
Yeah,
is
I was
flat.
not
It's
aware of that.
amazing. It's amazing. But the power structure in this country and all Western countries don't want you knowing that the Earth is flat because if you do, you cannot deny creation. I used to deny creation. I believed in the Big Bang and evolution. But once you understand that this place is intelligently designed and that you're at the center of creation, you can't deny it.
I have another question this is from the chat.
Okay.
Um, they say, what would you say to the people who can prove the perspective of a solar eclipse by using a scaled model?
Well, you can make a model. A model doesn't prove, it doesn't make it true because you can make a model. Um, there's we're not sure what eclipses the sun because no one ever sees the moon approach, eclipse, or exit the face of the sun during the eclipse. Now, it sure looks like it's the moon. I've made a model where I can show that the sun is being eclipsed by the moon from behind the sun that we see, right? And you can find those videos in the eclipse section on the FAQ page of the app. But
Okay.
there's another eclipse, the lunar eclipse. That's when the Earth gets in between the sun and the moon and casts a shadow on the moon. Now, if you actually look into casting shadows over long distance, it's impossible. You can't do it. Go out at noon, put a basketball on the ground. Notice the nice sharp shadow around the basketball. Now lift the basketball up over your head and look for the shadow. It's gone. Right? The shadows fuzz out. They don't travel for 250,000 miles and stay sharp edges. Right. And also, when you cast a shadow onto a sphere from another sphere, it doesn't come on as a perfect smiley face. It comes on as a long ellipse, and then it spreads out, and then it leaves as a long ellipse. So those are two problems, but there's a bigger problem, right? In order,
I actually have a question. One of my questions, I'm trying to find it here, was about the shadow of the moon.
yeah.
Um, it
Let me
is,
let me finish though on the eclipse though.
yeah,
For the Earth to cast a shadow on the moon, assuming it could cast a shadow, it would have to be in between the sun and the moon. Agreed?
for the Earth to cast a shadow on
The moon,
what,
it
I'm
would have
sorry?
to be
Mhm.
in between the sun and the moon to cast a shadow. It'd have to be in alignment
Yes.
with it, right? So, so picture on your left, you have the sun above your left horizon, and the moon is above your right horizon. Well, the eclipse can't start yet because they're not in alignment yet. One of them would have to go below your horizon if you lived on a ball, right? But there's been over 50 documented selenilian eclipses. That is where both the sun and the moon are still visible to the viewer, and the eclipse starts on the moon, but it doesn't come in from the bottom. It comes in from the top. So there's two problems. One, they can see the sun and the moon both above the horizons, which means that the earth is not in between, and the eclipse starts from the top, not from the bottom. Right now, if you are able to picture all of that when I'm describing the eclipse, you'll understand that that's impossible. And guess what the scientists call the selenilian eclipse? They call it the impossible eclipse, but they don't explain anything. They don't. Well, it's called the impossible eclipse because it happens, but we're just going to ignore it because that's what heliocentric scientists do. They ignore anything that goes against
So
their
what is the
hypothetical
shadow of the
model.
moon?
What is the
Because
shadow?
yeah,
So
because the
it
shadow of the moon is round,
yeah,
right?
well,
It's got that like half moon. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
well, like
Well, if you take a sphere and get a single source light and light it up, and then get a book, a straight edge, and eclipse it, you're going to see a curved shadow. Now, I'm not saying that a flat earth or straight edge is eclipsing the moon. I don't think anything is eclipsing it from the way we see it. I think the moon is powering down. The moon is a light, and then it gets eclipsed by some other dark body or something, which is causing it to power down. The sun and the moon are an electrical system, and the sun's energy, I think, gives the moon its light. But when it gets close like that, it powers it down, and then there's an eclipse, which could go. It's more complicated than we can get to on here. But on my
Yeah.
app, the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app, you can find it at flatearthdave.com on the FAQ page, which is the question mark button. Click the eclipses, and there are tons of videos in there that Google is hiding from you. Even if you search for them by name, you won't find them.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So we covered the shadow at the moon and the eclipses. So I guess the next question would be, what do you think about the navigational techniques used by sailors and pilots for centuries? That's how, as it's been taught to us.
Yeah, well, we can navigate by the stars because the stars are fixed in position in the sky. So you know what our North Star is Polaris. You're aware of that?
Yes,
And where are you in the northern hemisphere?
I am. Yes.
Okay, so how high is Polaris? Do you know? Have you looked up and seen Polaris?
The North Star. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So how high is it off the horizon? Can you give me an angle?
Um, I would say, I would say, like if we were look at like clockwise, like it would
Yeah,
be like a 10
like
o'clock.
so no, well, no, 10 o'clock. So it would be at 10 o'clock. So you're on the so you're, well, it doesn't matter where.
I'm in the Northeast
You're in
of
the
the United
Northeast.
States.
I was going to say you're on the East Coast, but the and how high is it off the horizon? Like if you're looking straight up, that's 90 degrees, and zero is the horizon.
Like
So
like
45
six
degrees.
fingers. Like if I'm looking at like
Yeah,
the horizon.
yeah. So you're in the Northeast, and Polaris doesn't move because that's the center of the star rotations, and all of the stars spin around Polaris over the flat Earth. Right? If we were corkscrewing through space at all those speeds I mentioned to you before, Polaris would move every day, but it doesn't. It never moves. And are you familiar with the Georgia Guidestones?
Oh yes, the ones the trio stones.
Well, there in Georgia, there's like a Stonehenge type thing that was built in
Yeah, it's like big flat
1981.
stones with
Yeah.
inscriptions.
Yeah. So the whole inscriptions on it, that's a whole nother podcast. But there was a hole in the middle one, like the size of a straw. And if you put your eye up to it, it shows Polaris. And Polaris is always there all the time, all year long. And they tell us that, well, Polaris is so far away that even though we're moving 4.4 billion miles a year, there's no parallax. It just doesn't move, which is a cool story, bro. Right. But they say that the Earth is wobbling 1 degree every 76 years. Now, one
Yeah, me
degree
too.
in the sky is equal to three full moon widths. So three full moons have side by side is 1 degree in the sky, right? So the Georgia Guidestones were up for over 40 years, which would mean it went over a half a degree of a wobble, and Polaris would be far out of that hole, but it was still there. So we started making videos. They started going viral. We're like, hey, this is rock solid proof. No pun intended or pun intended. And then within days, a terrorist blew up the Georgia Guidestones.
Yeah,
Th-
they're not there no more.
3 hours later, bulldozers were there, took all the evidence away, stole the time capsule, and no investigation was ever done. Isn't that
Wow.
weird?
Um, so what about tidal waves in
Tidal
the
waves.
ocean?
Yeah. So tsunamis, you mean tsunamis from earthquakes and tsunamis, right?
Yeah, and the general push and pull of the ocean and stuff because I was taught that it's controlled by like the pull of the gravitational pull of the moon.
So you're talking about tides, not tidal waves, tides. So
Yeah.
in the north, there's tides 30, 40 feet in far north. And at the equator, with like the Maldives, it's less than 6 inches. Okay, that's weird. And then there's these things called tidal nodes that are all over the earth. And those are where there's no tide. And then high tides and low tides circle around that no tide center point. And all of these spiraling node points, they kind of line up with the magnetic flux of the Earth, right? The magnetic patterns of the Earth. So if the moon's gravity is what made the high tide, right? So do you know that there's higher tides when there's a full moon? The full moon makes higher tides. Well, why is that? I don't know. If it's the heliocentric model, it's just the full moon is just a moon with sunlight on it. A new moon is just a moon with no sunlight on it. And think about this: a full moon is on one side of the Earth, and the sun would be on the opposite side of the Earth. But a new moon, 2 weeks later, the moon and the sun are both on the same side of the Earth. Now, the moon and the sun both have gravity, right? The sun's gravity can hold on to Pluto, for Christ's sake. Okay. So the sun and the moon are pulling on the earth, on the waters. If that's true, why wouldn't there be super high tides when there's a new moon? And there's not, right? So the tides only happen in salt water. That we live in this giant battery system, right? The sun and the moon are the anode and the cathode of the battery. The salt water carries the current. The land is the salt bridge, and that creates the battery, the earth, the free energy battery that we live in. And so it is 100% proven that the gravitational theory of tides is false. Now, the moon is responsible for tides a little bit, but it's the phase of the moon that matters. Well, a full moon creates higher tides because it's powered up. A lot to take in. On the frequently
Yeah,
asked questions
I'm
page
just
of the Flat
confused
Earth
about
Clock
that
app,
part because like
there's
where
a tide
I live
section.
like really close to the ocean, right? And we
Yeah.
have high tides and low tide like twice a day.
Yeah. Well, twice a day. So, on the app, there's a section called What About Tides? And it has all of that stuff. But let me tell you your explanation, the globe explanation for tides. So you have your ball, and you have the moon on one side of it, and there's a high tide below that ball. Okay, below that. But on the far side of the ball, there's another high tide. And Neil deGrasse Tyson, the high priest of global scientism, he says, well, you have a high tide because the moon is pulling the water away from the earth. But the water on the other side of the earth is so far away that the moon is pulling the earth away from the water to create that other high tide. And that the earth rotates in between those bulges and they kind of stay still, which is ridiculous. It's the dumbest thing ever. If you couldn't figure it out, it's not because you're stupid, it's because it's stupid, right? The heliocentric explanation for tides is utterly ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, thank you for explaining like the tides and the tidal part of it. Um, so what is your take on flight paths of airplanes, especially long haul flights over the poles?
Well, it's funny that no planes go over the poles. They go close to the North Pole, and no planes go over the southern poles. So no planes go over the southern poles, the southern pole at all. So let me show you. Let me show you a flight route. So you know where New Zealand is. So I'm
Yeah.
showing on the app here. New Zealand is on the bottom left next to Australia.
Hmm.
And the plane wants to go to Argentina, which is over in South America. And the shortest route is literally just a straight line, a slightly curved line because the Earth is a globe between those two. But that flight route goes all the way up to San Francisco, across the equator, and then across America to Houston, Texas, and then all the way back down to Argentina.
Why would they
That's
do?
because what did your mom teach you about the shortest distance between 2 points?
Yeah, it's a straight line.
Yeah. So New Zealand, San Francisco, Houston, Texas, Argentina create a perfectly straight line on a flat Earth map. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
My chat is asking about Polaris again, and they're
Yep.
saying, can you explain how Polaris is not seen as you get closer to the equator?
Yes, I can. Thanks for asking. It's one of my favorite questions, by the way.
Oh, and
Um,
that was asked by Killer Cameron.
all right. Very nice. So pay attention. So in the flat Earth model, the sun is very small. It's probably not even physical, the sun that we see. It's just a point of light in the sky. And the stars are very close too. We've actually sent balloons up at night with 4K cameras looking up, and we could see the stars before they even took. When the Milky Way is out, before they even took off. And as that balloon gets higher and higher and higher, those stars should get literally brighter and brighter and brighter as we're getting up through the thickest part of the atmosphere. But by the time that balloon hit 60, 70,000 feet, all the stars were gone. It makes no sense in the
Wow.
heliocentric model. So the stars and the sun and all the luminaries are close on a flat Earth. So let's make a small scale model. We're in a big room, and let's say we got 10-foot high ceilings, and we have recessed lights in the ceiling, but they're in random patterns. And you and I are hanging out. We're looking up and say, "Hey, look! If you put those lights together, that kind of looks like a starfish, and that looks like a horse, and that could be an octopus." You're like, "Yeah, I could see that." So now let's expand that room to the size of a city, right? Miles across. And I say,
Mhm.
okay, you start walking away. Now, remember, we got 10-foot high ceilings here. I don't know if you've ever been to Las Vegas, but like the Bellagio, the hotel's so long. If you go to one end of the hall and look down to the other end, that literally looks like the ceiling is touching the floor. That's just due to perspective. We know that it's not, but it looks like it. So you start walking away, you're a half mile away, a mile away. I can't see you anymore, right? Because the ceiling and the floor, from the way my eyes work, have merged together, and you're beyond that horizontal eye zone, right? So you're walking a couple miles. Let's say you're 5 miles away. I yell, you can't hear me. It's 5 miles. So I call you on your phone. I say, hey, I say, look up. I said, do you see that octopus? Do you see that horse? Do you see that starfish? And you're like, no, no, I see completely different lights. There's your explanation,
Yeah.
because you're
Interesting.
too far away. Now, on a globe, and a spherical globe where the North Star is over the North axis, you should never, ever be able to see the North Star south of the equator, right? You should not be able to see it south of the equator, but it's been seen as far as 30 degrees south, right? And the Southern Cross, which is near the southern point of star rotation, should never be seen from the north, but it's been seen from Texas on a regular basis. So these are things that are impossible on a globe, but make perfect sense on a flat Earth. Hey, everybody, a quick message that I'd like to share with all of you. Our lives are filled with toxins in our air, food, and even in the information we're taught. Avoiding them all is impossible, but helping your body detox doesn't have to be complicated. That's where Masterpiece comes in. Just 5 drops under your tongue twice a day, and that's it. Super easy, super simple, and it doesn't even taste bad. I've tried countless supplements, and while generally I'm pretty healthy, I didn't really feel much of an effect. But with Masterpiece, it delivered noticeable benefits. Check out the podcast I did with Terry from Masterpiece, linked below this video, or you can find links directly to Masterpiece on my website, flatearthdave.com, or in the shopping section on the app. The key to health is to detoxify. Now back to the show.
Okay. Yeah. Do you know whereabouts in Texas, or like the southern part of it, or like
I'm
how far
assuming, I
north?
forget where, but let's just say, I don't know, San Antonio, somewhere
Okay.
southern
I
Texas.
was just curious. I mean, not that it truly matters. It's still in the north hemisphere, but
Yeah. So that's, that's fascinating. And
speaking of
go ahead.
the balloon with the 4K camera that we were talking about, when you go up, it goes up and then the stars disappear.
Yep.
Um, I wanted to talk about the atmosphere because Mount Everest stands at over 30,000 feet.
Yep.
And when people climb it to stand at the Earth's highest point,
Yep.
some people need to carry oxygen
Yep.
because of the low air pressure.
Yep.
Why is the air pressure like different?
Yeah, because air is there is a pressure gradient, but pressure means that it needs to be contained. Let's say I was having a barbecue and I said, bring the propane over, but don't bring a container. Just bring the propane by itself. You couldn't do it because gas violently fills the available space. Now, if I had a half a tank of propane, right? The bottom of the tank has liquid propane. The middle area has the thicker gas, and the top area has the thinner gas. That's just how gases work, right? They get thinner as you go up, but they need to be contained. If I put a hole anywhere in that tank, all the propane is gone. So we live in some sort of containment that's holding our air in. It might just be water that's above us. The Bible says that it's a crystalline firmament or a dome, right? I don't
Okay.
know. I can't go there, right?
Yeah.
There's a on the app. There's um, a section. This is the more resources section, and there's a video. There's a video. Let me see if I can get that to work. There's a video. This is called the Go Fast rocket. It was a amateur rocket that went up over three no, I'm sorry, 72 miles. And at 72 miles, while it's spinning and spinning and spinning, all of a sudden it goes kerplunk, like into a liquid, but like not as thick as water. And then it stops spinning all of a sudden. It just goes kerplunk into this plasma, if you will, and then it was floating kind of weird, which is all interesting. But the most interesting part was that when it stopped spinning, it turned on its side, and all of a sudden you can see the moon. Right? That's not so weird, but you can see the moon.
But it only
And
went 72 miles up.
it went 72 miles up, but it could see the moon. Here's the problem: the moon was over Australia at that time, and this took off in Arizona. So if the Earth was a basketball and that rocket was on the top of the basketball, it went a millimeter over the basketball, and the moon was directly below the basketball. How did we see it? It's impossible to see the moon below the basketball if you're only 1 millimeter above the basketball, right? Unless, of course, the Earth is flat and we're looking across the Earth plane.
I see that. Yeah, I understand. Um, what is something that you wish the world would understand most?
I wish the world would understand that they're divinely created, that governments do not rule over people, that nobody rules over you other than God, that you have incredible powers, that there is unlimited resources, that they're hiding free energy. Look into radium, right? Radium. They used to have free energy everywhere on Earth, right? There was an advanced civilization here long before us. And if you on my app, there's a old world section which looks like a dragon, and you click there, and there is all sorts of amazing stuff on my website. There's a button, there's a big banner. It says "Old World Order." Watch that. Watch that. It'll change your life forever. Um, and there's tons and tons of information about the old world. And once you see it, you're going to go out in your hometown. You're going to walk outside. You're going to look at buildings that you've looked at your whole life and go, how come I never noticed that before? How come I never thought about that before? Because your history class is just his story. It's not the truth, right? This world, this country wasn't stolen. It was re-inhabited. There was cities here when we discovered it, right? When Lewis and Clark made their pathway out west over the Mississippi, San Francisco was fully built. It was a huge advanced city here already, right? But they don't want you to know that. All of these buildings were founded. So back to what do I want people to know? That you're divinely created, that there's no overpopulation. We're not running out of food. We're not running out of energy. The governments are hiding everything. They're trying to control you. We live in a soul system, a system made for souls to have experiences here in this incarnation. And it's not a soul lure system where they're trying to steal your soul. So once you understand all of that, then you'll be like, oh, that's why they're hiding the flat earth. Because all the flat earthers, and there are a lot of them, we all see it. We all see it big time. And you'll hear stories, flat earth is dying, they did the final experiment, all nonsense, all nonsense. What I'm showing here on my app now, these are just the people that have my app and are using it now. Okay. These are people that are researching flat earth, and they're everywhere. They're not just in
Yeah.
the United States, they're everywhere. They're in the UK, they're everywhere. So this is something that's growing. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. You can't unsee it at all. South Africa. And once you see it, it's a game changer forever.
So I know we talked about what the heliocentric perspective of the size of the Earth, but what is your perspective of like the size of the Earth plane or the flatter.
Sure.
Like,
So I think that the dimensions of the world that they give us spread out in a flat plane is where we live. Now, we don't need to speculate what's beyond the shoreline of our world to know to say what's out there or what's above higher than we can get, which appears to be about 72 miles. Um, but I think that there's more land beyond the shoreline of our pond, right? Our pond, large bodies of water at rest need to be contained. A pond needs to have sides because if the sides aren't there, the pond will flow away, right? A lake needs to have the land all the way around that's higher. Guess what the highest continent on Earth is? Antarctica. It's over double the height of the second highest continent. Antarctica is not a continent at the bottom of a globe. Antarctica is the shoreline around our world.
okay. So I know earlier we talked about how lakes do not have tides, but the ocean does. So how
Mm-hmm.
do the tides come work with Antarctica as the
Well, there's
edge?
magnetic. We live in this toroid, this magnetic toroid that's spinning around. So the energies are moving around. You can look into, you ever heard the term the fountains of the deep? Um, Personally, I think that the earth is inhaling and exhaling twice a day, every 6 hours in, 6 hours out in the north. And then the electromagnetic flow around the earth is causing all of these other currents and vortices. And I think that's where the tides come from. It's certainly not the gravitational pull of the moon.
Okay. Well, I thank you for like explaining that because I was like, oh wait, let me circle back
Yeah,
to
but
that.
but but again, uh, people like, oh, Dave's just trying to sell a $3 app. I'm trying to give you the information, right? And if you want to support me so I can do more of this stuff, it's $3. It's a cheap cup of coffee and you have the app forever. But what about tides? You see the yellow right there? What about
Hmm.
tides?
Yeah,
There's
it's right
tons of
there.
information right there, and hey, why the lie? That's worth the price of the app. The seasons, the southern stars, the rotation of the southern stars, all of this stuff. Where does the sun go? Another great section. These are things that are all being hidden from you. They don't want you to see these things because when you do, you can't be put back to sleep.
So
And
are
you're,
all pilots under like, do all pilots like know the truth, or are they also like
yeah,
asleep in terms of
this
like,
section right here, pilots and scientists,
oh,
right?
okay.
And there we have tons of pilots. I can call a pilot up right now. American Airlines pilot, a Delta pilot, Qantas pilot. These guys, most of them, you know what? I won't say most of them. Many of them know, but they're never taught about the spin and the curve of the earth. Think about this: a pilot's 125 miles from an airport, and he says, "Okay, I'm going to start descending slowly." I don't want the passengers to be uncomfortable. I don't want to go into a dive to get to the runway. So 125 miles, I got to calculate. All right, if I'm at, let's say, 12,500 feet, I got to drop 100 feet per mile or whatever it is. Whether you got to drop, he's got to figure out the calculation to drop. The funny thing about that calculation is they calculate, okay, if I'm at 10,000 feet and I got 10 miles to go, I got to drop 1,000 feet per minute to get to the airport, right? Make the math easy, right?
Yeah.
But at 125 miles, that calculation, if he doesn't calculate curvature, which he doesn't, he'll be 2 miles too high when he gets to the airport because at 125 miles on the globe model, the Earth drops 2 miles. So if he doesn't calculate that extra drop, he's going to fly right over the airport. But they never calculate that drop. They never calculate spin. When they're flying east or west, is the runway coming at them or running away from them? They don't calculate any of that. If you flew from Alaska, right, where you're only supposedly orbiting around that center point at maybe 300 miles an hour, and you flew to Ecuador and tried to land on a runway that's north south, that runway is moving over 1,000 miles an hour sideways. How are you going to land on it? Unless the earth is flat and none of these motions matter, airplanes fly straight and level over the earth plane. And that pilot section that I showed you a minute ago,
Yeah.
there's one of the videos. It's called 27 Pilots Blow the Whistle. Right on my website, on their flatearthdave.com, under the crash course, I believe it's the third or fourth video. It's called Flatten the Curve. And it's a bunch of military pilots and weapons guys that completely blow the whistle on the globe lie. They're like their weapons wouldn't work, their flights wouldn't work, and they explain exactly how. These are military guys that are explaining they know the Earth is flat, otherwise they wouldn't be able to do what they do. So again, you know, it's up
Do
to
you think
you. Good.
I know this is probably like a really like out of the like way deep into like conspiracy question, but like when you mentioned it was like 27 pilots, do you think that that is like the reason why that band is called that? So that if I Google 27 pilots, in order to try to get the information we're talking about,
Yep.
instead we get like that mainstream media because I like that's just something like just
All the
randomly.
right. So when the globe trolls, there's a team of government shills out there making anti-flat earth videos. They show up when you search flat earth. Those are the top videos that you get. They push all the videos that they want you to see, right? But the flat earth videos don't show up unless you say sort by date, then they do show up. But there's so much garbage, it's hard to find the good stuff. That's why I created this app. It organizes everything. All the new videos are on there. There's featured videos every day. There's archive videos. There's the homeschool section. There's books, right? Amazing books on flat earth. I get them divided up into kids books, more lands, biblical, novel, all sorts of stuff. There's all sorts of stuff. I even have a friend finder on here. On the friend finder, there's a dating section because basically, bad news, good news. Once you become a flat earther, nobody you've limited your dating possibility to only flat earthers. Okay, because you can't
Well,
be with a
yeah, but
glober.
it's the same thing as like almost like religion too, though.
Well,
Like bold
it's
opinions and bold
yeah.
perspectives are tend to isolate you.
Well, the good thing about flat Earth is once you see it, you can't unsee it. And if anyone, if you're a flat earther and your partner is not, if they're intelligent, you can show them that the Earth is flat. All they got to do is listen, and all they got to do is look, and they got to use their own brains and not believe. They have to verify and just and prove everything. That's easily done. Easily done. But you have to be willing to admit you've been lied to your whole life. Some people just can't handle it.
Do you feel in danger for
Right.
spreading this sort of truth?
No, I don't. I believe that I'm fine. Um I don't believe the world works that way. And the thing is, a lot of people say that I'm just doing this for money. I made a lot of money. I had my own business. I was making buco money, and I walked away from it all. I walked away from it all to spread this message, and I give the information away for free. It's all on my website. It's all you need on my website. But once you become a flat earther, you're going to want resources to get to more. So that's why I created this app. People say I could sell the app for $50, $3 one-time charge. That's it.
Yeah. Because I
Yeah.
just
That's the
I
only thing.
appreciate
That's
it
the
so
only
much.
argument people can come up with is, oh, he's just doing it to grift to make money, and the trolls will show up in your comments, and you'll notice that they're just empty channels, saying all sorts of stupid things. But the truth is, I'm offering 3 Bitcoins for 1 globe proof. Come and take it.
Yeah. That is so it's I tried to do my research before this and I did not hear about that because that Bitcoin challenge is really just saying like, hey, like I'm open to new
Yep.
information. Just come provide it.
The, the
And
the globe trolls will try everything. They're like, oh, his Bitcoin challenge has been they've given him dozens of proofs and he won't pay up. Show me one proof, right? They're going to come up in hordes in your comments, and they're going to be like, oh, he's a grifter, he's this, and he won't explain sunsets. I've explained sunsets 1,000 times, right? But they'll never offer a globe proof. And if you look at their channels, I call those all the commenters that'll show up. I call them the globe proof channels because if you look at their channels, there's nothing on them. They're empty. They're trolls. They're bots. Or these are lazy trolls or bots. So again, don't believe anything I say. Verify this stuff yourself. I've made it super easy for you. FlatEarthDave.com. I've even made it free if you don't want to buy the app. go for it.
So when you said that that there are like no other planets earlier on,
Yeah.
um so are those projections, or like what are they? Are they just to make us believe in the heliocentric
Good question. It's a
control?
good question. So all of the one, they used to be called wandering stars until NASA took over. All right. Wandering stars are all named after gods, which is fascinating. And, astronomy, which I used to think was real science, it's pure pseudoscience. They don't use the scientific method at all in astronomy. They use math formulas and assumptions and nonsense, right? Astrology is the real science, which I used to laugh at and mock at. I'm like, how could Mars, 400 million miles away, be in retrograde and matter on my life at all? But then you find out that Mars is part of this electrical system that we live in here close to Earth, and its movement does affect your life. Then it's fascinating. And if you look at astrologers, there's some really great flat earth astrologers out there because they know that the earth isn't moving, right? Astrology talks about the movement of all the planets, but they never talk about the movement of the earth. Wait a minute, we're moving 4.4 billion miles a year, and that doesn't matter in astrology? Well, it doesn't matter because it doesn't matter because we're not moving, right? But flat earth astronomers, I mean, astrologers know that we're not moving.
So we're not moving, but the what we would call in layman's terms planets, but are actually called wandering stars, they're moving?
Well, the only
Or
thing that you can say about the lights in the sky, from the sun, the moon, the stars, asteroids, whatever you want to call it, Halley's Comet, is that they're lights in the sky. No one can say anything else. We don't know how big they are. We don't know how far they are. But our consumer optics have outgrown their lies, and we see amazing stuff. Check out the stars section on the FAQ page on the app. Mind blowing videos there, or just go to my website, flatearthdave.com, click on Flat Earth Dave interviews, and I have lots of video interviews where I go over all of this stuff. So
okay.
again, it's all there for you to see. You can lead a man to knowledge, but you can't make him think.
What do you think about climates and how they're different for different countries and according to where you're at on that's something that's being talked about in my chat right now.
Yeah, yeah. So seasons are fascinating, and they actually prove um that the Earth is flat. So they tell us that the sun is so far away that the rays come in straight, but we're tilted at 66.6 degrees and we're spinning. Well, how come the heat pattern is staying in between the tropics? It should be going across diagonal to the poles because we're tilted. But if you look at it on a flat earth, the sun and the moon travel in between the two tropics, which is the yellow line and the red line, 6 months out to the red line, Tropic of Capricorn, 6 months into the inner line for the northern summer, which is the Tropic of Cancer. And if you look at the flat earth heat map, that's where the heat is. The heat stays in between the tropics because the sun goes in and out, radiating the earth around and around and around. Those places in the middle, the sun will pass over them twice a year. That's why it's so hot. And places like where we are in the Northeast, the sun never even crosses over us once. It gets close to us in June, then it starts moving away again, and we have our winter. The sun is lower in the sky in the winter because it's farther away. If you stand under a street light, that's your summer sun, let's just say. And then the one, two, or three lights away, that's your winter sun. It's lower, farther, and it isn't giving you as much heat. If it was a sun, of course. There's a great section in the app on the FAQ page called Seasons, and it has some great videos on seasons. Seasons right there in the middle. Bam.
Yeah. Okay, I appreciate that. Okay, so they're saying not seasons but climates, and their example was a desert countries exist adjacent to countries with vast farmlands, and some countries even have both.
Yeah,
So I think they're talking just about like
that has to do with the topography, and also, lots of stuff has been done to alter this planet, incredible strip mining and all sorts of stuff. So Man has been manipulating the weather since early 1900s, and with all of the spraying of stuff in our sky, who knows what this world is supposed to look like at this point? There's no such thing as natural weather anymore, because it's completely
Did you
manipulated.
see, speaking of like manipulation of the of weather, so India had admitted to using drones to manipulate weather in order to incite rain when it was like a wicked dry.
Yeah, Dubai
And
actually has an active weather modification center. They admit it all the time, and that's why just last year they screwed up and they flooded the desert. They're literally all the cars were underwater in Dubai. It's a desert, but they flooded it because they're literally playing with God.
how deep is the Earth?
Well, the deepest hole, flat or round, is only 7.8 miles. It's called the Core Borehole. It was dug in Russia, joint venture with the United States and Russia. And while they were digging, they were using ground penetrating radar to see what they were going to hit next. And it was wrong. Hey, no more rocks. They hit rocks. Hey, no more water. They hit water. Right. So they couldn't even figure out what was in the first 7.8 miles. But then it got to a point where they hit an impenetrable barrier. And they tried for years. They tried blowing it up. They tried drilling it with diamonds. They tried heat. They tried everything. And they could not get any farther. And then they come
So it's
up with
kind of
the,
like Bedrock. I don't know how familiar you are with video games. Video games is predominantly like what I do.
yeah.
But it's kind of like in Minecraft how it's like Minecraft is a flat earth area, right? And at the very bottom of that is like bedrock where you can't go any further. So is
Yeah.
that what you mean by that layer that
Well,
you were
maybe,
just
maybe, I mean, we can drill through bedrock. We can drill through any known substance, but we could not drill through the bottom. That could be like the firmament above. Maybe it's the same material. I don't know. But then they show us the meme of the flat Earth, I mean, of the globe Earth with the magnetic core at the center, and they show us all the layers. Wait a minute. They couldn't get the first 7.8 miles, but they know the next 4,000, right? That would be like
Yeah.
taking a drill and drilling through apple, and you got a quarter of the way through the skin. You were wrong every step of the way, but you know what the core is all of a sudden, right?
Yeah,
Not,
I
not
was thought that the
yeah.
core was like liquid metal,
It's
but
a molten magnet. That's another thing they're laughing at us for, because you can take any magnet, and when you heat it before it melts, it hits what's called the Curie point, and that's where it loses all magnetism. So there's no such thing as a molten magnet except in the center of the Earth. There's no such thing as uncontained gas except on the Earth and in space, where gas turns into burning suns, right? The heliocentric lie breaks every law of science. It's pseudoscience.
yeah. Well, thank you for explaining that. Oh, I have a sailor, a naval sailor in my chat.
Okay.
Um, he was asking you to explain over the horizon and that he's seen it firsthand while he was on the water.
Well, what does he mean by over the horizon? Because a 6 foot tall person standing at the edge of perfectly calm water should not be able to see the surface of the water beyond 3 miles because it's a 6 foot drop. But there's we have Army Navy guys that operate the rail gun that can shoot something 125 miles away. That's 2 miles of curvature, right? They can see a target and nail it with a projectile to 125 miles away. That's 2 miles. So there should be a mountain of water 2 miles high in between them. But for some reason, they can see them. They can target it. They can hit it with a laser, and they can hit it with, target it with a laser and hit it with a projectile. Right? Submarines at the bottom of the abyssal plain can see other submarines with their sonar over 100 miles away. Sonar bounces off of anything that it hits that's solid. Well, there should be a hill of dirt over 6,000 feet high in between those two submarines. For some reason, the sonar climbs over that mountain, goes down the other side, hits the submarine, turns around, comes back over the mountain, back down, and says, "Oh, look, there's a submarine on the other side of this mountain." Or, but that's impossible. It's just shooting sonar straight out. We also have microwave towers, right? Microwave towers on boats, right? Just like 10, 12 feet off the ground, that need line of sight. These towers should not be able to see beyond 8 or 10 miles, but they're going 800 miles. 800 miles, right? That's like 60, 70, 80 miles of curvature is missing. It's missing. It's missing.
Yeah, from that math.
well, that's their math, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they'll say, oh, it's refraction. You see refraction. There's all this refraction happens, right? So right there, they're admitting that they don't have a physical horizon on a globe, but they want you to believe that boats disappear bottom up because of curvature. It's wrong. It's just wrong. Hey,
Um,
the sailor guy on my website, flatearthdave.com. See the picture of me, crash course, click it, scroll down third or fourth video. It says beyond the curve. Watch that. Flatten the curve, not beyond the curve. Flatten the curve. Beyond the curve is a hit piece on Netflix. Flatten the curve. Watch that. You'll love it.
well, thank you so much for taking all this time.
All right,
Um,
man. Thanks.
yeah, it was so nice like meeting you, and I feel like I've learned a lot. I've taken a lot of notes.
Well, here's the thing. I I tell people just take it slow. Don't believe anything. Verify everything. Start watching the videos. You can watch the ones on my website. If you want to get the app, that's great. Every day on the left-hand corner of the app, there's a daily featured video. So get up in the morning while you're having your tea or coffee or cereal or whatever you're eating. Just watch the video. Watch one video a day. And I guarantee within 2 weeks, you're going to be like, the globe is nonsense, right? Again, go out and verify these things yourself. There's all sorts of tests that are done. On the more resources section, there's a thing called experiments. We have all of these experiments that have been done for you and documented for you to see. So,
Yeah, well, this is so interesting, and yeah, I actually didn't even know about your app until I got the email earlier today about your app, and I was like looking into that, because I got the email, for the link to be here.
yeah,
Oh,
no,
he's got an app, and I was
the
like
app,
looking at.
listen, go read the reviews on the app, except, of course, the trolls that are trying to stop, steer you away. If you read all the comments everywhere, you'll just give up because you'll be like, "Oh, this is too crazy." And that's the idea. They don't want you knowing how powerful you are. They don't want you knowing that there's unlimited resources. They don't want you knowing that they don't have control over you. They don't want you knowing that there's probably more land. They don't want you knowing that there's free energy. Right? Imagine if you had a radium device that would power your home for hundreds of years, power your car for hundreds of years. Would that change your life?
Yeah. So when you say they, you mean like do you mean like the like quote like one percenters or the elitists, or do you mean like all governments in general?
It's beyond that. Governments are just the puppets of the real controllers. There's like 13 or 20 families that we don't even know their names that run this world. All the world leaders. Uh, at one point, they all go to Antarctica, and I think that's where they're getting their marching orders from the real rulers of this earth. There's reported to be millions and millions of people living in Antarctica that aren't allowed to communicate with us. There could be other civilizations there. I think that, personally myself, I think that we're getting our technology from there, and lots of stuff. Well, if you look in the Antarctica section on the app, I talk about the some boats that we saw that were like hundreds of miles inside of the shoreline of Antarctica. We're like, how did that work? But when you look at it, you just put it on a flat Earth map, then they're on their way to the outer lands, to other civilizations, and maybe they're trading tuna fish, maybe they're trading computer chips, or maybe they're trading children. I couldn't tell you, but it's proven that they're not in the middle of a continent called Antarctica. They're going into the outer lands somewhere. So again, don't believe anything I say. Verify, research, check it out. Check out my website. All the information's there. If you want to get the app, that's fantastic. It'll help you. But if not, just watch the free information. There
Yeah.
you go.
Well, thank you so much, and I really enjoy the last couple bits of with Antarctica,
Yeah,
and
that's a good
definitely
one.
want to get into it
Yeah,
like further,
you
because
can
that's not
find you
something I knew too much.
right on my YouTube channel, which is DITRH. Again, just remember flatearthdave.com. All my YouTube links are there. Everything's there. I have all short videos there. And you want to find the video on Kiribati, which is a hub for these trips to the outer lands. You've never even heard of Kiribati. So again, when you look into this stuff, and by the way, we started making videos about Kiribati. They changed the name to Kiribati to Karamati, so you couldn't even find it on Google Earth anymore, right? So again, we're over to Target. They're watching. They're doing everything they can to stop this, and it's up to you whether you want to take the time and look into it, because belief is the enemy's knowing, or belief is the lazy man's knowing. You can believe whatever you want. It takes no effort. But if you want to know the truth, you got to really start to think. You got to use your God-given common sense.
Yeah, you got to research for yourself and really
Well, a lot of
get
people,
the
the internet has made it
understanding.
easy. We've done the research and we're sharing it. Go watch the research. Go watch it and think about it, and then do your own. So there you
Yeah.
go. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of
Appreciate it.
course. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'm so glad that we
FlatEarthDave.com.
could do this.
Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Yes, you too. And thank you so much again.
All right, you got it. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, everyone. If you enjoyed this interview, please help support my work and help wake up others by referring or gifting the app to at least one person today. By doing that, you're going to help wake people up and help me to continue doing other interviews like this. With the censorship out there that's going on, it's very difficult to find relevant information. And the app, as you know, brings people to the truthful information of our world. So help support my work, help support your efforts in waking up friends, family, and strangers. Gift them the app or just recommend the app. And let's make 2025 the year Flat Earth breaks free. Check the links below for information on how to gift the app or just refer the app to others, and use your referral code to earn Dome cryptocurrency and a free subscription. Thanks.